Ever felt that odd, inexplicable pull to someone, even when they're miles away? It's like their presence lingers in your thoughts, unexpectedly interrupting your day. You're just walking, minding your business, and suddenly there it is, a whisper of their name, a flash of their face. It's not something you planned, but why does it happen? Maybe you've been told it's all in your head, just coincidence or a simple quirk of your brain. Yet, have you ever considered that there's something deeper at play? What if the connection you share with someone lingers beyond time and space, like two ripples from the same stone, echoing in two different ponds? Let's dive into this unspoken, invisible bond that refuses to fade. We're often told to ignore these strange moments, to chalk them up to our mind playing tricks. But what if our emotions, not just logic, hold the key to a truth we've been overlooking? In this fast-paced world full of distractions, how do we rediscover the deep emotional connections that guide us? There's something uniquely powerful that happens when two people become emotionally tethered. It's not always about proximity, and it doesn't always come with intention, but it comes through thought. Imagine this. You're simply walking down the street, minding your business, when all of a sudden you feel it. A subtle pull, a whisper of their name in your mind, a sudden flash of a memory, or an emotion that doesn't quite fit the moment. It seems out of place, yet it feels undeniably real. It's not something you planned or anticipated. It's not rational. But when it hits, it strikes with the intensity of something significant, something that truly matters. Perhaps because, deep down, it does. Modern culture often tells us to brush off these momento, dismiss them as coincidence or cognitive bias. We're conditioned to believe that if you think about someone and they think about you at the same time, it's simply a trick your mind is playing on you. But what if it's not? What if there's more to it than meets the eye? What if these thoughts, these moments of connection, are not just random occurrences, but rather echoes of something deeper? Something like ripples in a pond, spreading across time and space from the same shared stone. This is where things start to get interesting, because as humans, we are not just machines. We don't merely react to external stimuli like robots following a pre-written script. We are far more intricate and complex. Our emotional landscapes are layered, our psychology deep, and our spiritual selves unpredictable. When two people connect, especially through vulnerability, longing, and raw emotional truth, something powerful happens. An invisible bond is formed. It's not something you can see or touch, but you can feel it, and once that connection is forged, it doesn't just disappear. It doesn't fade away because time has passed, or because the conversations have stopped. Sometimes the thoughts remain. Sometimes they're mutual. But here's the problem we face today. We live in an age of constant noise, a world filled with distractions and digital clutter. We've become so accustomed to quieting our inner voices, to second-guessing the signs that used to guide us, that we begin to ignore our own intuition. How many times have you dismissed a sudden wave of sadness, or a random dream about someone from your past, telling yourself it meant nothing? How many times have you felt someone's presence so strongly, almost physically, only to push that feeling aside because it didn't make logical sense? But here's the thing. Logic isn't always the best compass for truth. Emotions have their own intelligence, their own way of communicating with us. And when two individuals are deeply and consistently thinking of each other, their emotional frequency leaves trace clues. These clues tend to appear at the most unexpected times. Maybe in the form of a song on the radio, a fleeting glance from a stranger, or a recurring pattern in your life that seems to lead you back to one person, one unresolved presence. This is not about mysticism or some fairy tale romance. It's about the psychology of connection, the tangible yet invisible force that shapes our relationships and bonds. When you've loved someone deeply or shared a connection that transcends logic, that bond doesn't simply vanish. It lingers, quietly, subtly, shaping the way we think, feel, and experience the world. But what does this mean for us in the long run? How does this bond affect our present lives and our future interactions? Let's dive deeper into the way these emotional connections continue to impact us, even when we least expect it, as we explore this topic further in the next section. Building on the idea from our last discussion where emotional bonds refuse to fade, let's dive deeper into what happens when these connections persist in the most subtle yet undeniable ways. When someone has profoundly impacted your life, their imprint doesn't simply vanish over time. The nervous system remembers. The unconscious mind holds on, even when you try to move forward. And then, something strange happens when their thoughts about you collide with yours. A phenomenon begins to emerge. It's as if an inner connection awakens, revealing itself in ways you can't ignore. These aren't fantasies or coincidences. They're signals, echoes of something greater. And these signals should be approached with seriousness and discernment, because they can mean many things. Maybe there's unfinished business. Perhaps there's healing left to be done. Or maybe, just maybe, this connection is trying to say goodbye. But sometimes, the signs aren't about endings at all. They could be pointing you towards something you haven't yet understood, something still waiting to be uncovered. Before we can fully decode these signs, though, we must start by being honest with ourselves. It's easy to let our egos tell us that we're imagining things especially when the feelings don't fit into neat categories or spreadsheets. We must strip away the narrative that says, we're just dreaming, and instead be willing to confront the possibility that emotional bonds are real forces. And when those bonds are mutual, they don't always remain silent. They have a way of revealing themselves in the quietest moments, in dreams, in stray thoughts, and even in unexpected alignments that challenge our understanding of time and space. Consider this. How many times have you picked up your phone only to have it ring with their name right when you were thinking about them? How often have you opened your social media and there they were appearing in your feed even though you hadn't searched for them in months? Or maybe you've thought about them so strongly in the morning only to learn that they were asking about you that very day. These patterns are easy to dismiss at first, but as they repeat, they begin to ask you to pay attention. You can't just ignore them anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean you should chase these signs recklessly as if there's some kind of magical solution. That's not the point at all. The goal is not to romanticize these moments of mutual thinking as some fairy tale ending. The real goal is to understand them, to listen to what they're trying to tell you. Because just as two people can align in dysfunction, they can also align in growth. Sometimes, mutual thinking represents longing. Other times, it's a symbol of readiness for something new. And in some cases, it's the mind's final attempt to bring closure to what couldn't be spoken aloud. There's a weight to this kind of mutual thought, a sacred weight. If you're feeling it, and you suspect they are too, don't just brush it off. Instead, pause and ask yourself, why now? What am I being shown here? Is this a sign to reach out? Or is it time to let go peacefully? Is it about them? Or is it about finally understanding the lesson they've brought into your life? Before we explore the 10 signs that tend to surface when two people are mutually thinking of each other, let's ground ourselves in one essential truth. Just because something is invisible doesn't mean it isn't real. And just because it defies logic doesn't mean it lacks meaning. The human heart knows things long before the mind is ready to admit them. If these signs are showing up in your life, they aren't here to torment you. They are messages meant to guide you. Now, let's begin uncovering those signs that often appear when two minds are connected in ways we can't always explain. Are you ready? Stay tuned as we dive deeper into these mysterious and meaningful signs that just might change the way you look at your emotional connections. Picking up where we left off, exploring the invisible threads that connect uslets, take a deeper look into what happens when those connections start to speak, not through words, but through silent understanding. They're not coincidences, and they're not games. These connections, these silent exchanges, are a form of communication that transcends the spoken word. When two minds, two hearts, begin to connect in this way, something profound happens. It's not delusion, it's real though hard to explain. If you're brave enough to notice, to tune into these subtle moments, they might just tell you exactly what you need to hear. There are moments in life when something so strange occurs that it defies explanation. You think of someone out of nowhere, and moments later they call. You dream about someone you haven't seen in years, and the next day their name surfaces in a conversation, or you feel an intense surge of emotion, whether sadness or joy, for no clear reason, only to later find out that the person who once meant everything to you was going through something significant at that very moment. At first, these occurrences are easy to brush off as coincidence. It's the safe, rational explanation. But if you pause, take a moment to reflect, and truly pay attention, you begin to notice something deeper at play. Patterns begin to emerge. You start to see an invisible thread that connects two souls, two minds, in ways that transcend both time and space. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. It's in our nature to seek connection, not just through speech or action, but through intuition, through a shared emotional space. When two people form a deep emotional bond, it's not easily severed. The residue of shared experiences, unresolved feelings, and emotional intensity lingers long after the relationship itself changes form. It's more than just memory. It's energetic memory. It's the lasting imprint of someone's presence on your nervous system. And that imprint doesn't sit idle. It reverberates. When both people think of each other, especially at the same time, something powerful happens, resonance, like two instruments finely tuned to the same frequency, vibrating across vast distances. The most fascinating part? It doesn't require either person to be consciously aware of it. They don't need to be in direct contact, and they don't even need to be speaking. The alignment of thought can still manifest, creating a resonance that is undeniably real. These moments of synchronicity carry emotional weight that logic can't quantify. And when they happen again and again, they begin to challenge everything we've been taught about isolation. They defy the belief that we are just solitary beings separated by skin and silence. Perhaps you're going about your day, deeply focused on something else. Then, out of nowhere, a memory hits you with unexpected force. Just a fleeting thought, but a wave. A vivid emotional wave that pulls you back to a moment you hadn't thought about in ages, a conversation, a glance, a moment of shared silence. And just as quickly, you find yourself wondering, what are they doing now? Where are they? Do they feel it too? This is the start of synchronicity. It's a mental and emotional tether being activated, not by you alone, but by the other person's mind, reaching out in its silent way. It's profound, this connection, and it's far from random. As we explore the depths of these moments and the forces behind them, we begin to understand that these connections are not mere happenstance. They're part of something far bigger. Let's continue as we uncover more about this invisible yet powerful force that shapes the way we experience the people we care about. Building on our previous discussion about synchronicity and invisible connections, let's dive deeper into the profound realization that thought isn't just a private, individual experience, it's relational. When we think about someone intensely, when we emotionally engage with their memory or an idea of them, we are sending something out. This emotional energy isn't confined to our own minds. If they are doing the same, whether consciously or unconsciously, a kind of psychic loop begins to form between us. It's not magic, it's simply the result of deep emotional encoding. Our brains are wired to notice patterns, especially those tied to people who mattered to us. But when these patterns begin to emerge, not just from within, but seemingly from the world around us, something beyond memory is at play. This is the realm of synchronicity. In these moments, time begins to behave differently. The past doesn't feel so far away. The gap between you and that person seems to shrink, not in a physical sense, but emotionally. You might see their name pop up on a screen unexpectedly, hear their favorite song in the background of a random place, or have a mutual friend casually bring them up in conversation. These aren't just random triggers of memory. No, they're signs of alignment. And alignment suggests that something is moving not just within you, but between the two of you. This doesn't necessarily mean you're destined to reconnect, nor does it imply that every synchronicity is a sign that you should take immediate action. but it does suggest that your emotional landscape is alive with meaning, and that meaning, when you begin to notice it, is worth investigating. When you're thinking about them, and they're thinking about you when these thoughts alignate, not always because you're holding on. Sometimes it's because there's something unfinished, something unspoken, something still connecting your souls in a way that words can't express. Recognizing synchronicity doesn't mean abandoning logic. Far from it. It means embracing the full depth of human experience. It's an acknowledgement that the mind doesn't simply operate on facts and figures. It moves on stories, emotions, archetypes, and intuition. And when two people become part of each other's psychological stories in a profound way, their minds don't just part ways neatly. They return to each other, sometimes unpredictably, like waves being drawn back to the shore. That return, those moments when you both think of each other without knowing that the other is doing the same air forms of contact. They might not always lead to closure or reconciliation, but they are real. This phenomenon demands your attention, not your obsession. It's not about chasing every coincidence or turning every emotion into a fantasy. It's about tuning into the deeper dialogue happening just beneath the surface of your life. It's about learning to trust that when something feels meaningful, it probably is. When you sense a connection that defies logic, when it pulls at you without reason, it may not be your imagination playing tricks. It might be your psyche inviting you to pay attention to the patterns, the signs, and the subtle dialogues between two souls that transcend space and time. Now, let's take a step further and explore how these connections can manifest even in the most unexpected ways. How do these moments of synchronicity unfold in our lives, and what do they reveal about the nature of human connection? Stay with us as we dive into this fascinating exploration of the invisible threads that connect us all. Continuing from where we left off, the idea that connections don't always need to be visible to be valid, let's explore the depth of this phenomenon even further. When you feel it, that unmistakable sensation that they're thinking of you, just as you are thinking of them, don't brush it off. But also, don't idolize it. Instead, allow this moment to inform you. Let it serve as a mirror to your own emotional state. Ask yourself what it might be revealing about your unresolved fears, your longings, or your regrets. This is not just about fleeting thoughts or passing feelings. It's a chance to reflect, to integrate, and to understand the deeper forces at play in your life. Because in truth, real connection doesn't need to be seen to be valid. Sometimes it's the invisible signs, the ones that whisper instead of shout, that reveal the most profound truths about who we are. They can show us what we really want, what we're still holding on to when no one else is watching. The truth is, most people walk through life unaware of the immense power their subconscious mind holds. It's the undercurrent of our behavior, the unseen architecture of our thoughts, emotions, desires, and fears. And this subconscious mind plays a profound role in relationships, especially those that leave an imprint on us. Have you ever found yourself repeatedly thinking about someone, often without reason? It's not always because your conscious mind is choosing to remember them. More often than not, it's your subconscious mind pulling them into focus, not because of sentimentality, but because there's something unresolved, something emotionally unfinished that demands attention. When both people are experiencing this subconscious pull simultaneously, the effect can be both confusing and undeniably powerful. It's like a silent tug between two minds, one that neither of you may be aware of, but which you both feel deeply. You might not have spoken in months or even years. Your lives may have drifted in separate directions, but the energy that once existed between you still has momentum. Emotions don't just disappear. Instead, they get buried, displaced, or repressed. They find their way into your body, your habits, and even your dreams, and they come to the surface when the conscious mind quiets. That's why someone might pop into your head in the middle of the night or during a moment of vulnerability. In those quiet moments, when your mind is at rest, the subconscious feels safest to speak. And when those thoughts come, they carry a weight. It's not just a fleeting memory, it's an emotional charge, a pull that demands your attention. Whether it's longing, guilt, regret, affection, or unfinished grief, it's there, calling to be acknowledged. And when both people are experiencing this at the same time, it's as if the universe itself is aligning these two forces, pushing them toward each other for a reason. As we continue exploring this concept of subconscious connection and the silent dialogues that occur between minds, we'll uncover more about how to interpret these experiences. What happens when the energy between two people becomes undeniable? How can we use these emotional currents to guide us toward understanding, healing, or closure? Let's dive deeper into these powerful subconscious forces in the next part. Building on the idea of unspoken emotional connections, let's explore how these invisible bonds can manifest and what they truly mean when they resurface unexpectedly. It's not just about missing someone. It's about confronting the part of you that still feels incomplete, still tethered to the emotional truth of that connection. What's astonishing is that this process can happen on both sides, often without communication and without deliberate intention. You might find yourself sitting in silence, overwhelmed by a sudden memory, while they too are being pulled back into the same emotional space. This isn't a fantasy, nor is it some imagined connection. It's the way our subconscious mind organizes unresolved emotional bonds. When a connection was intense, perhaps rooted in vulnerability, trust, or even trauma, it leaves behind a kind of psychological footprint, a trail that the mind follows, instinctively seeking closure, understanding, or reconciliation. This unspoken residue doesn't simply fade away. There's also a fascinating element of emotional timing. The subconscious mind doesn't resurface emotional material randomly. It waits until you're ready to process it. There are moments in life when you've grown enough, been strengthened enough, clarified enough to handle what you couldn't before. That's when these connections reappear in your mind, not just as a memory, but as a vivid emotional experience that doesn't make sense logically, but feels undeniably real. When this happens to both people, it triggers an invisible loop of attention. One person thinks of the other, and that thought creates an emotional wave that reaches out even across time and space. The other person may feel it too, perhaps without fully understanding why, and finds themselves thinking of the first person in return. It's a cycle, one that the subconscious creates, even in the silence. We tend to underestimate just how much of human connection exists beyond the conscious realm. We often assume that if there are no texts, no calls, no interactions, then the bond must be dead. But in truth, many of our strongest relationships continue to live within us, regardless of whether they manifest in the outer world. These inner connections don't fade. They continue to breathe through the subconscious mind. You might find yourself feeling their energy in a room they've never entered. You might sense their mood, even without hearing their voice. This isn't some magical illusion. It's the psychological residue of closeness. When both people feel it, it manifests in repeated thoughts, parallel emotions, and unexpected moments of synchronicity. It's as if the universe is aligning the emotional and mental frequencies between two people who are still connected, even in silence. But here's the catch. This pull isn't always comforting. In fact, it can be unsettling because it forces you to confront emotions you thought were long buried. It makes you question your healing, your independence, and your progress. But healing isn't about forgetting. It's about integrating, taking those emotions, those unresolved parts, and allowing them to become a part of your growth. When someone reappears in your thoughts, drawn in by the subconscious pull, it's not always a sign to go back. More often, it's a signal to look deeper. Ask yourself, what part of myself did I lose in that connection? What part of me still feels unseen, unspoken, unresolved? And perhaps most importantly, are they thinking of me too? Not because they want to reopen the door, but because as we continue to explore these subconscious forces and the role they play in our emotional lives, we'll dive deeper into how to truly understand these signals. Are these connections calling us to heal, to understand, or to let go? Let's continue unraveling these emotional threads in the next part. Continuing from where we left off, the idea that the subconscious mind plays a vital role in emotional connections, Let's explore how it works even when communication has stopped. When you find yourself constantly thinking of someone and it feels involuntary, it's likely that your subconscious is doing its own internal work. You can't fake emotional truth, and you can't silence the subconscious forever. It will find ways to express itself, whether through dreams, repeated patterns, or even physical symptoms. The subconscious doesn't seek comfort, it seeks wholeness. So, if you're thinking about someone persistently, it may be your psyche's attempt to reconcile a part of your story that still feels unfinished. And if they're thinking of you too, it's possible that both of you are caught in the same psychological loop, each of you trying to make sense of the past in your own way. But here's the crucial point. Just because your subconscious brings someone up doesn't necessarily mean the relationship should be rekindled. Sometimes it means a part of you is finally ready to say goodbye in a deeper, more honest way. Other times, it might be showing you that a part of your identity still resides in the shadow of that connection, waiting to be reclaimed. Occasionally, yes, it could mean that the door is still slightly ajar. But this is only meaningful if both people are willing to step into that space with clarity, maturity, and mutual understanding. The subconscious pull is real, but it's not destiny's data. It's a message from your deeper self, calling attention to something that matters. So when you feel that pull, don't rush to conclusions. Don't romanticize it, and don't suppress it either. Sit with it. Let it be a moment for reflection. Listen to what your subconscious is trying to communicate. Use it as an invitation to grow, not towards someone else, but toward a fuller understanding of yourself. Because when two people think of each other at the same time, it's not just memory. It's a sign of internal work unfolding in parallel, a synchrony that connects you both emotionally, even in silence. And that awareness, if honored, can become a powerful tool for emotional maturity and personal transformation. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than any conversation. It lives in the space between two people who are no longer in communication, yet still remain tethered by an invisible thread. This silence is not cold or empty. It's charged with meaning, emotion, and energy. When both of you stop talking, whether by choice or circumstance, you might expect the connection to fade, but often it doesn't. In fact, something unexpected happens. You begin to notice signs, strange alignments, moments of synchronicity. You think of them, and they appear in your dreams. You feel a wave of emotion that doesn't match your surroundings, and their name surfaces in your mind. You hear a song or see a phrase that seems to carry their energy. These are not coincidences. They are expressions of energetic alignment. When two people are thinking about each other at the same time, even without speaking, the silence becomes a carrier of emotion. That silence often carries more weight, more meaning than words ever could. Many people assume that when a relationship ends or when a connection breaks, the emotional line between two people simply snaps clean. But the truth is far more complex. As we continue to explore these mysterious and powerful emotional connections, we'll uncover more about how these silent forces shape our lives. What does it mean when the invisible threads of connection refuse to break? How do we navigate these emotional landscapes, and what can they teach us about ourselves? Let's dive deeper into this profound journey in the next part. Continuing from our last discussion, we dive deeper into the idea that silence doesn't always signify absence, especially when emotions are still deeply entangled. But that's rarely how the human heart operates, especially when the connection was deep, complex, or unresolved. In these cases, silence doesn't mean that the bond has disappeared. It's not a sign of emotional void. Instead, it signifies storage. Emotions aren't eliminated. They are shelved. Unanswered questions are simply postponed. And affection doesn't vanish, it freezes. But just because something is frozen doesn't mean it's forgotten. Frozen emotions still exist, dormant, waiting for the right moment to resurface. And when both people are thinking about each other, the silence between them becomes a space where these dormant emotions begin to thaw, often all at once and without any warning. One of the clearest signs that both people are thinking about each other is when you begin to feel emotional shifts, even when nothing has changed in the external world. You may suddenly feel unsettled, nostalgic, or even hopeful without any new information or interaction. This happens because emotional energy doesn't rely solely on physical action. It travels through intention, memory, and mental focus. When someone thinks about you intensely, especially if they once shared a deep emotional bond with you, that energy has a way of reaching you. You might not understand it, you might not believe in it, but you feel it. And here's the truth: the body knows what the mind tries to deny. There's a reason that, even after months of no contact, a small trigger can reopen the entire emotional world of that person. Maybe it's a voice that sounds like theirs, a familiar scent, or even a street corner that brings them to mind. The mind may say it's irrational, but the emotional body doesn't lie. It remembers everything, every laugh, every argument, every unresolved goodbye. And when the emotional energy of that person reaches you, even unconsciously, it can awaken all of those memories and emotions. This isn't fantasy. It's the reality of shared emotional history. When two people have been deeply connected, their nervous systems adapt to each other. They learn each other's emotional rhythms, and together they co-create an emotional ecosystem. Even when you're not speaking, this ecosystem doesn't just vanish. It remains in latency, dormant, but alive. Sometimes, this shared energy resurfaces through dreams, because that's often where the subconscious feels safe enough to process what the conscious mind has been avoiding. You may find yourself dreaming vividly of them, not just fragmented moments, but full conversations, emotional exchanges, even entire scenarios that feel more real than your actual memories. These dreams may coincide with their own internal experiences, and you wake up with the distinct feeling that something has shifted. You can't explain it, but you know it meant something. That's not your mind playing tricks on you. That's your psyche doing the work your waking self has been afraid to touch. It's also common for mutual thinking to manifest as physical symptoms. You may feel tightness in your chest, a sudden wave of anxiety, or a heaviness in your stomach. These physical reactions are not to be ignored, as they're the body's way of expressing emotions that are otherwise hidden in the subconscious. As we continue to explore the complexities of these subconscious connections and how they affect our emotional and physical states, we'll take a closer look at how these energies unfold and how we can better understand and navigate them. What do these signals really mean? Let's continue to uncover the mystery in the next part. Continuing from our previous exploration of emotional connections, let's now delve into how these subtle yet powerful signs manifest and what they truly mean for us. These sensations seem to come out of nowhere, often aligning with emotional shifts in the person you're mentally connected to. You can't always see the cause, but you feel the effect. And while modern thought might dismiss this as emotional hypersensitivity, it's more accurate to say you're still attuned to the connection. The emotional bridge between you hasn't collapsed, it's simply been quiet. But when both of you walk on it at the same time, even unknowingly, the structure vibrates. Another fascinating layer to this experience is the way reminders appear with eerie precision. You're not searching for them, but they find you. A message not intended for you suddenly contains a phrase they often say. A book opens to a chapter that echoes your last conversation. A stranger might casually say something in passing that touches a nerve, one only that person could have reached. These occurrences are not always mystical in nature. Often, they are the mind's way of confirming what the heart has already suspected. The bond is still alive in some dimension. But here's the key. It's important not to mistake this shared energy as a sign that things need to be revived. Just because you're both thinking about each other mean that a reunion is meant to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean the connection is healthy or that it will lead to something meaningful. Sometimes, mutual thinking is simply the psyche's way of seeking closure in the absence of conversation. It's the final processing of a relationship that never fully ended. In that sense, silence itself becomes a kind of dialogia space where emotions speak in place of words, and presence is felt rather than spoken. It's deeply human to crave resolution, to want clarity, to seek understanding about what the silence means. But silence does not always provide clear answers. Sometimes it shows you how deep your feelings still run. Other times, it reveals what you're still afraid to admit. And sometimes it serves as a reminder that, even without words, something between you still breathes. That breath, however, does not always mean a return. It may simply signify a recognition, a moment of truth shared between two minds that continue to visit each other in the quiet spaces. So, when you find yourself feeling the weight of someone's presence, even without their physical return, and when the silence between you begins to feel like a song you can't stop hearing, don't rush to fill it with noise. Let it be. Let the silence speak. Let it show you what you still carry within. And if you suspect that they too are feeling the same, walking through the same storm of memories at the same time, know this: it's not a weakness to feel. In fact, it's a sign that what you had truly mattered. Sometimes, that realization is all the understanding you need. As we continue to explore the power of these unspoken connections, let's take a deeper look at how timing plays a crucial role in these emotional dynamics. How does the timing of these moments affect our understanding of these experiences? Let's uncover more in the next part. Continuing from the idea that emotional readiness and timing play a crucial role in human connections, let's explore the deeper dynamics of this emotional journey. Two people can meet and instantly feel a strong pull toward each other. However, if either one or both are not in the right place internally, emotionally, psychologically, or spiritually, the connection struggles. It falters, sometimes even collapsing under the weight of unrealized potential. This is the challenge that many relationships face: timing, maturity, and the unseen inner cycles that need to align for a bond to truly flourish. Yet, when both individuals are silently growing, when they are healing, understanding, and reshaping themselves separately, an invisible synchrony begins to develop. Over time, as they go through their respective transformations, the timing slowly aligns. When both hearts, minds, and souls are more prepared, the pull between them intensifies. At this point, thinking about each other becomes almost inevitable. Emotional growth, however, is not linear. It doesn't follow a straightforward path where you simply get better day after day until you're ready for love. Healing occurs in spirals, and during this process, you gain strengths that you didn't even know you needed. There are moments when someone who once mattered to you drifts out of your conscious thoughts. You might go days, weeks, or even months without their name crossing your mind. But then, out of nowhere, they return. It's not because you consciously called them back. It's because something inside of you has shifted and a door has opened, recognizing their energy in a new way. And often, they are undergoing the same quiet transformation, their journey invisible but just as powerful. When two people start thinking of each other again after a period of silence or distance, it often signifies that their emotional clocks have synced up. The work they've done individually has created a shared readiness that simply didn't exist before. It's as if the unfinished business between them rises to the surface, demanding recognition not out of desperation, but because there is now a new capacity to handle it. The love, respect, and understanding that couldn't fully flourish in the past begins to feel possible, even necessary. The mind, ruled by the subconscious, responds by bringing that person into sharper focus. You might find that the thoughts you have of them now are different than they were before. They are less about fantasy and more about reality, less about need and more about truth. Now you're no longer thinking of them with the desperation of unresolved emotions. Instead, your thoughts are marked by clarity, suggesting growth. You see their flaws, you recognize your own mistakes, and you understand the challenges that once overwhelmed you. Yet, despite all of this, you feel drawn to them not in spite of these things, but because you understand them better now. This shift in perception is a clear sign that timing has matured both of you in ways you couldn't have forced if you tried. At the same time, when emotional timing aligns, it feels as if the universe itself, or whatever you call the vast orchestration of events around you, begins to participate. You encounter more signs, more coincidences that seem too precise to ignore. It's as if the world is nudging you, gently reminding you of something that's been lying dormant, waiting for this exact moment. As we continue to explore the powerful forces of emotional timing and synchronicity, let's take a closer look at how these signs can lead us to understand the true meaning of connection. What happens when these forces align perfectly? How do we navigate them? And what are they trying to tell us? Let's uncover more in the next section. Building on the idea that subtle signs of emotional alignment are often reflections of internal readiness, let's delve into how these experiences manifest and what they truly signify. You might find yourself unexpectedly crossing paths with a mutual friend, or perhaps a song plays that carries with it both of your shared memories. Maybe you dream of them vividly, sensing that they are closer to you than before, even if, on the surface, nothing has changed. These moments are not coincidences. They are signs that something significant is brewing beneath the surface. These signs are not commands or instructions. Instead, they mirror the subtle truth that you are thinking of each other because something is ripening, something is coming full circle. It's important to understand that even when perfect emotional timing aligns, it doesn't guarantee a fairy tale reunion. It doesn't mean you must reach out or that they will. Sometimes the alignment happens simply to allow forgiveness to flow, so peace can settle in your heart, closing a chapter that once felt perpetually open. Other times, it opens the door to a new beginning, not based on old wounds, but built on new understanding. Whether it leads to reconnection or not, the synchronization of thoughts and feelings is real. It speaks to the profound interconnectedness that human souls can share even across silence, distance, and time. Timing teaches you that love is not just about attraction or affection, it's about capacity. The capacity to understand, to forgive, to receive, and to give without fear or manipulation. When you think of someone at the same time, they are thinking of you, and you feel that pull not from a place of scarcity, but from a place of expansion. It's a sign that you both have grown. You are no longer trapped by the immature patterns that once defined your bond. Instead, you are seeing each other and yourselves with wiser, more compassionate eyes. Timing also teaches patience. You realize that true connection cannot be rushed. You could have wanted them desperately months or years ago, but if either of you was not ready, no amount of wanting could have made it work. Growth had to happen. Lessons had to be learned individually. And when the timing finally aligns, the connection feels different. It becomes less about possession and more about presence. It's less about expectation and more about appreciation. You become more sensitive to the quality of your thoughts. When you think of them now, it's not with frantic longing, but with peaceful curiosity, a gentle warmth, and an honoring of what once was, paired with an openness to what could be. This emotional shift is a reflection of inner evolution, and often they are experiencing it too. The same invisible threads that once tangled you in confusion are now weaving a new pattern that holds more integrity, more dignity, and more truth. Timing is the invisible hand that guides much of what we feel and experience in relationships. When you both think of each other, when emotions rise without warning but without panic, when memories return but without the old ache, it's often because you have entered a phase of readiness that wasn't possible before. A phase where your hearts can speak to each other across the silence, where your souls can acknowledge each other without fear. And even if no words are exchanged, even if no reunion occurs, this shared emotional alignment is real. It is meaningful, and it marks a moment of profound growth for both of you. As we explored the profound secrets of the invisible connection between two people, where time and space are no longer barriers, what seem like random moments actually holds powerful messages, signs showing the unspoken harmony between two souls. But is this a sign for a reunion, or is it just a valuable lesson in growth? What we've uncovered so far is just the tip of the iceberg. The spiritual and emotional connections and the signs we encounter every day are keys to deeper journeys in love, forgiveness, and understanding. But are you ready to embrace and decode them? Don't miss the upcoming videos, where we'll dive deeper into more miraculous signs in life and how we can recognize and develop authentic relationships from these connections. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share so you won't miss a thing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.